black Mercedes pulled up smoothly in front of La Belle Étoile, one of Manhattan's most expensive restaurants. Vincent stepped out, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. The meal had cost him $3,000, but money meant nothing to him anymore. At 42, he had built a tech empire worth billions. His apps were on every phone. His investments had turned struggling companies into gold mines. He was the kind of man people wrote articles about, the kind who appeared on magazine covers with the title, "The Man Who Never Loses." The autumn evening was cool, and Vincent checked his watch. His driver had texted that he'd be there in 5 minutes. Traffic was heavy tonight. Vincent sighed and decided to wait outside rather than back in the restaurant where the manager would inevitably try to make small talk. He hated small talk. That's when he noticed her. She was sitting on the sidewalk about 20 feet away, her back against the old brick wall of a closed bookstore. Most people wouldn't have given her a second glance. Just another homeless person in a city full of them. But something made Vincent look twice. She was young, probably in her mid-20s. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her clothes were clearly worn and faded. A large backpack sat beside her, along with a small rolling suitcase that had seen better days. But what caught Vincent's attention was the cardboard sign propped against her knees. "We'll play piano for food." It read in careful, neat letters. Vincent felt a laugh building in his chest. Piano on the street? He had seen plenty of creative panhandling signs before, but this was new. He walked closer, his expensive leather shoes clicking against the pavement. The girl looked up as his shadow fell across her. Her eyes were a striking shade of green, and despite everything, they held no trace of defeat. "Just a quiet, watchful intelligence. Piano?" Vincent said, not bothering to hide his amusement. "That's a good one. Very creative." The girl didn't respond immediately. She just looked at him, her expression unreadable. Vincent felt irritated by her silence. People usually scrambled to respond when he spoke to them. "Let me guess," he continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're a concert pianist who fell on hard times? Trained at some prestigious school?" "Something like that," the girl said quietly. Her voice was softer than he expected, but there was steel underneath it. "Right." Vincent pulled out his wallet, more out of habit than generosity. He always kept small bills for situations like this, though he rarely used them. It was easier to just give a few dollars and move on, than to deal with the guilt of walking past. But something about this girl's sign annoyed him. The dishonesty of it. He held out a $20 bill. "Here, but next time try being honest. Nobody's going to believe you're a piano player." The girl didn't reach for the money. Instead, she stood up slowly. She was taller than Vincent had expected, almost 5'8". Despite her worn clothes, she held herself with an odd kind of dignity. "I don't want charity," she said, her voice steady. "The sign says I'll play for food." "That's what I meant." Vincent stared at her, genuinely surprised. "You're serious?" "Completely." "There's no piano here," Vincent said, gesturing around the busy street. "In case you haven't noticed." "I know that." The girl's jaw tightened slightly. "But you're standing here judging me, deciding I'm a liar before you even know anything about me. So I'm telling you, I'm not lying. I can play." Something about her tone caught Vincent off guard. He was used to people either trying to please him or being intimidated by him. This girl was neither. She was just firm, honest even. "Prove it," he said, surprising himself. "How?" She crossed her arms. "You just said there's no piano here. That's your problem, not mine." Vincent felt a strange urge to push this further. Maybe it was because he was bored. Maybe it was because something about her reminded him of someone he used to be a long time ago. "You're the one making claims. If you can't play, no food." The girl's green eyes flashed with something, anger maybe, or determination. "Fine, you want proof? Give me your address. I'll come play for you. Or better yet, tell me where there's a piano in this city and I'll meet you there right now." Vincent almost laughed again, but something stopped him. She wasn't joking. She was dead serious, standing there in her worn-out jeans and faded jacket, challenging a billionaire to test her. "You don't even know who I am," Vincent said. "Does it matter?" The girl tilted her head slightly. "You're someone who can afford a $3,000 meal. You're someone who thinks people like me are liars. That's all I need to know." The accuracy of her observation startled Vincent. How did she know how much his meal cost? Had she been watching him? But before he could ask, his phone buzzed. His driver was here. The Mercedes pulled up to the curb behind him. Vincent glanced at it, then back at the girl. A crazy idea was forming in his mind. It was petty, maybe even cruel. But he had built his empire by taking risks, by making bold moves, and something about this situation intrigued him. "What's your name?"
he asked. The girl hesitated for just a moment.
"Lily, Lily," Vincent nodded. "Here's what's going to happen, Lily. I'm hosting a charity event next Friday night. It's at the Riverside Hotel, the Grand Ballroom. Very fancy, very expensive. I need someone to play piano for about 40 minutes. Lily's eyes narrowed. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to prove yourself," Vincent corrected. "You show up, you play the piece I choose, and if you're as good as you claim, I'll pay you $10,000. Cash." He watched her face carefully. $10,000 was life-changing money for someone in her situation. She had to take it, but Lily didn't jump at the offer. Instead, she asked, "And if I'm not good enough? By your standards? Then you leave this area. Permanently. Find another corner, another street, another city for all I care. But you don't come back here." It was harsh, Vincent knew that, but he wanted to see what she'd do. Would she back down? Would she admit she'd been bluffing? Lily was quiet for a long moment. The street noise seemed to fade, the honking cars and passing conversations becoming background static. Vincent could see her thinking, weighing her options. Her hands, he noticed, were surprisingly clean and well-kept for someone living on the street. The nails were short and neat. "Piano player's hands," a voice in his head whispered, but he pushed it away. Finally, Lily looked up and met his eyes directly. "Deal," she said. "But I need something." "Of course you do," Vincent muttered. "I need access to a piano to practice." Every day until Friday, Vincent almost said no automatically. But then he thought about his assistant, David, who was always bothering him about corporate social responsibility and community outreach. There was a community center a few blocks from Vincent's office. They had pianos, he remembered. David had dragged him there once for a photo opportunity. "Fine," Vincent said. "I'll arrange it. Be at the Riverside Hotel next Friday at 7 p.m. sharp. Wear something appropriate." "I'll be there," Lily said quietly. Vincent turned to leave, then paused. "You're going to lose, you know. Whatever you think you can do, it won't be enough." Lily picked up her sign and tucked it into her backpack. When she looked at him again, there was something almost like pity in her eyes. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe you will." Vincent got into his car without responding, and as the driver pulled away, he found himself looking back at the sidewalk where Lily was gathering her things. What had he just done? It was a stupid bet, a waste of time and resources. But as Manhattan's lights blurred past his window, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that something had just shifted in his carefully controlled world. He pulled out his phone and texted David. They had work to do. Vincent didn't sleep well that night. He kept thinking about the girl on the sidewalk, about her green eyes that showed no fear, about the way she'd agreed to his challenge without hesitation. It bothered him more than it should have. By 3 a.m, he was in his home office, staring at his laptop screen, trying to focus on quarterly reports that suddenly seemed incredibly boring. When morning finally came, he called David into his office. His assistant arrived with 2 cups of coffee and that eternally optimistic expression that sometimes made Vincent want to throw things. "I need you to do something," Vincent said, getting straight to the point. "There's a community center on 8th Avenue. The one with the music program. Harmony House?" David's face lit up. "The one I've been trying to get you to donate to for 2 years? That's the one." Vincent ignored the pointed comment. "They have pianos there, right?" "Several. It's actually a really great program. They help underprivileged kids learn music, offer free lessons, provide instruments. Last year they sent 3 students to—" "I don't need the full sales pitch," Vincent interrupted. "I need you to arrange access for someone. Daily access, starting today through next Friday." David pulled out his phone, already typing. "Sure, no problem. Who's the person?" Vincent realized he didn't have Lily's contact information. He didn't even know her last name. "Young woman, mid-20s, dark hair. She'll show up today asking about piano practice time. Just make sure she gets it." David looked up from his phone, curiosity written all over his face. "This is unusual. Is this for some kind of talent development program?" Because if you're finally interested in supporting the arts, I have so many proposals. It's personal, Vincent said sharply. Then softening slightly, just handle it, David, and have security install a camera in whatever practice room they give her. I want to make sure she's actually using the time. A camera? David's eyebrows shot up. That seems a bit invasive. It's for quality control. And David, don't mention my involvement. Just tell them it's a corporate sponsorship thing. After David left, Vincent tried to focus on work. He had meetings with investors, calls with his development team, decisions to make about a potential acquisition in Singapore. But his mind kept wandering. Around noon, David sent him a text with a link to a secure video feed. The camera was live. Vincent told himself he was just checking that the arrangement had been made properly. That's all. He clicked the link. The practice room was small but clean, with good lighting and a decent upright piano against one wall. And there was Lily sitting on the bench, her back straight, her hands resting lightly on the keys. She hadn't started playing yet. She was just sitting there, completely still, her eyes closed. Vincent watched for almost 5 minutes before she moved. When she finally placed her fingers on the keys and began to play, something happened in Vincent's chest. A tightness he hadn't felt in years. She was playing Chopin. He recognized the piece immediately, even though he hadn't thought about it in decades. Nocturne in E-flat major. His mother used to play it when he was young, back when they lived in that tiny apartment in Queens, back when a secondhand keyboard was the most valuable thing they owned. But this wasn't just playing. This was something else. Lily's whole body moved with the music, swaying slightly, her fingers dancing across the keys with a confidence that seemed to contradict everything about her situation. The melody was haunting and beautiful, and even through the tinny speakers of his laptop, Vincent could feel the emotion in every note. He closed the laptop abruptly. This was ridiculous. He was a businessman, not a music critic, so she could play a little Chopin. That didn't mean anything. The piece he'd choose for the gala would be much harder. He'd make sure of it. But over the next few days, Vincent found himself checking that video feed more often than he wanted to admit. During lunch breaks, between meetings, late at night when he should have been sleeping. He watched Lily practice for hours, moving from Chopin to Mozart to Rachmaninoff with an ease that should have been impossible for someone living on the street. She never seemed to notice the camera. Or if she did, she didn't care. She just played, lost in the music, her face showing everything she felt. Joy, sorrow, anger, hope. All of it flowing through her fingers into the piano. On Wednesday, 3 days before the gala, Vincent made a decision he knew was foolish. He told his driver to take him to Harmony House. He wanted to see her play in person, just once, just to confirm what the camera was showing him. The community center was busy in the afternoon. Kids were everywhere, some taking lessons, others just hanging out. Vincent felt out of place in his expensive suit, drawing stares from the staff and students. He made his way to the practice rooms in the back, following the sound of piano music. He found the right room and stood outside the door, which was slightly ajar. Lily was inside, playing something he didn't recognize. It was fast and complex, her fingers moving so quickly they almost blurred. Then suddenly she stopped midway through a phrase and slammed her hands down on the keys in frustration. Not good enough, he heard her mutter to herself. Again. She started the section over, and this time it was flawless. But she stopped again anyway and played it a third time. Then a fourth. Vincent stood there, watching through the crack in the door, fascinated by her dedication. This wasn't someone trying to pull off a scam. This was someone who genuinely cared about the music. Without thinking, Vincent pushed the door open. Lily spun around on the bench, her eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You," she finally said. "It wasn't a question." "Me," Vincent confirmed. He stepped into the room, suddenly unsure why he'd come. "I was in the neighborhood." Lily's expression clearly said she didn't believe that for a second. "Checking up on me? Making sure you're taking this seriously." "I always take music seriously." Lily turned back to the piano, her shoulders tense. "Is that all?" "Because I have a lot of work to do before Friday." Vincent should have left, but instead he found himself asking, "What were you playing just now?" Liszt La Campanella. Vincent knew that piece. It was notoriously difficult, full of wide jumps and rapid passages that could break even experienced pianists. "That's not going to be the piece for Friday." "I know." Lily's voice was calm. "I'm just practicing." Keeping my skills sharp? Where did you learn to play like that? The question came out before Vincent could stop it. Lily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was carefully neutral. Does it matter? You've already decided who I am. Some street person making up stories. Why would my past change that? I'm curious, Vincent said, and he was surprised to find it was true. Lily stood up from the bench and faced him directly. I went to Juilliard. Full scholarship. I was supposed to be the next big thing, or that's what everyone said. My parents were musicians too, not famous, but good. Really good. They taught me everything they knew before I was 10 years old. She paused, and Vincent could see pain flicker across her face. There was an accident 2 years ago. My parents were driving back from a performance in Boston. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. Her voice remained steady, but her hands clenched into fists. They both died instantly. I dropped out of school. Couldn't play for 6 months. By the time I wanted to go back, I'd lost my scholarship, lost my apartment, lost everything. Turns out my parents had been in debt for years trying to support my education. I inherited nothing but their old recordings and their love of music. Vincent felt something crack inside his chest. I'm sorry, he said, and meant it. Don't be. Lily shook her head. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because you asked. Because you seem to think I was lying about who I am. Well, this is who I am. Someone who lost everything but still has music. That's more than a lot of people can say. Vincent didn't know what to say to that. He'd built his entire empire on the idea that money and success were what mattered, that everything else was secondary. But standing in this small practice room, watching this young woman who had nothing but refused to give up the one thing she loved, he felt something shift in his understanding of the world. The piece for Friday, he said finally. It's going to be Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, the first movement. Lily's eyes widened. That's a full orchestral piece. We'll have a recorded orchestra track. You'll play the piano part. 40 minutes, like I said. Vincent watched her carefully. Can you do it? Lily straightened her shoulders, and that steel came back into her voice. Yes, I can do it. Vincent nodded and turned to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back. Your parents, he said. They'd be proud of you. He left before she could respond, but as he walked back to his car, he could hear the piano start up again behind him. She was already practicing, already working, and for the first time since this whole thing started, Vincent wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was the one who was going to lose this bet. Vincent couldn't stop thinking about what Lily had told him. That night, alone in his penthouse apartment, he did something he hadn't done in 20 years. He searched for his own past. It took him almost an hour to find the old box in the back of his storage closet. Inside were things he'd kept but never looked at. Photos of his parents, immigration papers, report cards from schools he'd almost forgotten. And at the bottom, wrapped in faded newspaper, was a small digital recorder. His hands shook slightly as he pressed play. The sound quality was terrible, full of static and background noise. But underneath it all, he could hear piano music. His mother playing. And then after a moment, a child's voice joining in. His own voice, young and uncertain, trying to match the melody. No, mijijo. His mother's voice came through, gentle and patient. Feel the music first. Don't think about the notes. Feel them here. There was a pause, and Vincent remembered her placing his hand over his heart. The piano doesn't make music, you do. The piano just helps you share it. Vincent turned off the recorder. His eyes were burning, and he rubbed them roughly. That was the summer before everything changed. Before his father's construction accident, before the medical bills that buried them, before his mother had to sell the keyboard to pay rent, before Vincent decided that music was a luxury they couldn't afford, and threw himself into studying computer science instead. He'd been 12 years old when he stopped playing. 30 years ago. 3 decades of building walls between himself and the boy who used to love making music. The next morning, Vincent did something that shocked David. He canceled all his Friday meetings. Every single one. When David asked if he was feeling all right, Vincent just said he needed to focus on the gala. Which was true in a way. But it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was that Vincent had spent half the night researching Lily's background, and what he'd found had left him speechless. Her full name was Lily Chen. She hadn't just attended Juilliard. She'd been one of their most promising students. There were articles about her from 5 years ago, when she was only 20. "The next great pianist," one headline read. "A prodigy reborn," said another. There were videos of her performances, recordings of competitions she'd won. She'd been spectacular, absolutely breathtaking. And then 2 years ago, everything stopped. No more performances, no more competitions, just silence. Vincent found the news article about her parents' accident. Robert and Lynn Chen, both music teachers, both respected in their community. The article mentioned they were survived by their daughter, Lily. There was a photo of them, a happy family of 3 standing in front of a piano. Lily couldn't have been more than 18 in the picture, her smile bright and genuine. What the articles didn't mention was what happened after. Vincent had to dig deeper, using connections he rarely used, calling in favors from people who owed him. He found out about the debt, about how her parents had mortgaged everything to support her education, about how Lily had tried to keep it together, tried to go back to school, but couldn't, about how she'd slowly lost everything. By Thursday afternoon, Vincent was sitting in his office staring at his computer screen when David knocked on his door. "The gala's tomorrow," David said, carrying a tablet. "I've got the final arrangements here. The caterers are confirmed. The orchestra recording is ready. The guest list is at 350 people. We're expecting to raise over $2 million for the Children's Hospital." Vincent nodded absently. "Good, and the piano?" "Concert Grand Steinway, just like you requested. It's being delivered to the ballroom tonight." David paused. "Are you going to tell me what this is really about? This whole thing with the mysterious pianist?" "It's complicated," Vincent said. "Everything with you is complicated." David sat down without being invited. "But this feels different. You've been distracted all week. You keep watching something on your laptop that you won't let anyone else see. And yesterday I caught you humming. I don't hum. You were definitely humming. Some classical piece I didn't recognize." David leaned forward. "What's going on?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you ever think about who you could have been, if things had been different?" David blinked, clearly not expecting that question. "Sure, I guess everyone does sometimes." "I was supposed to be a pianist," Vincent said quietly. "Before I was anything else. Before tech, before business, before all of this. My mother taught me. She said I had a gift." He laughed bitterly. "But gifts don't pay bills. Gifts don't keep you alive when your father can't work and your mother is cleaning houses 16 hours a day." "I didn't know that," David said softly. "Nobody does. I don't talk about it." Vincent turned his chair to look out the window at Manhattan's skyline. "I made a choice when I was 12 years old. I decided that survival mattered more than dreams. And I was right. Look where it got me. But sometimes I wonder what the other version of me would have been like, the one who kept playing. Is that what this is about? The girl tomorrow? Her name is Lily." Vincent turned back to face David. "And yes, she's everything I could have been if I'd been braver. Or more foolish, I haven't decided which." David was quiet for a moment. "What happens if she's amazing tomorrow? What happens if she wins your bet? I pay her and we both go back to our separate lives," Vincent said. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. Something had already changed. He just didn't know what yet. That evening, Vincent found himself walking past Harmony House. He didn't plan to go in. He just wanted to walk, to think. But as he passed the building, he heard piano music floating out through an open window. It was Lily practicing the Rachmaninoff. Even from the street, he could tell she was struggling with a particular passage. She kept stopping and starting, trying to get it right. Vincent stood there for almost 20 minutes listening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Around him, the city moved on, people rushing home from work, cars honking, sirens wailing in the distance. But all Vincent could hear was that piano, and the determination in every repeated phrase. Finally, he heard her get it right. The passage flowed perfectly, exactly as Rachmaninoff had written it. And then she played it again and again, cementing it into her muscle memory. Vincent found himself smiling. His phone rang, breaking the moment. It was his driver, asking where to pick him up. Vincent gave him the address and waited. As the Mercedes pulled up, he took one last look at the community center. Tomorrow was going to change things. He could feel it. When he got home, Vincent poured himself a drink and sat at his piano. Yes, he had a piano, a beautiful Bosendorfer Grand that cost more than most people's houses. He'd bought it 3 years ago during an auction. told himself it was an investment. He'd never played it. Not once. Tonight he sat down on the bench and opened the lid. His fingers found the keys, and for the first time in 30 years, Vincent Chen played piano. It wasn't good. His fingers were stiff. His timing was off. His memory of the notes was foggy at best. But he played anyway, stumbling through a simple melody his mother had taught him a lifetime ago. And as he played, Vincent realized something that should have been obvious from the start. This wasn't about Lily proving herself to him. It was about him proving something to himself. That maybe it wasn't too late. That maybe some parts of who you were supposed to be never really die. They just wait quietly until you're ready to find them again. Tomorrow night, in that grand ballroom filled with Manhattan's elite, Lily would play Rachmaninoff, and Vincent would be watching, not as a judge or a billionaire or a man who never loses, but as someone who understood, finally, what it meant to refuse to let go of the thing that makes you who you are. He played until his fingers hurt, until the melody was less shaky, more sure, and when he finally stopped, the silence in his apartment felt different somehow, less empty, more full of possibility. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Friday arrived with perfect autumn weather, clear skies, cool breeze, the kind of evening that made Manhattan feel almost magical. But Vincent barely noticed. He'd been awake since 5 in the morning, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except what was going to happen tonight. The Riverside Hotel's grand ballroom was transformed by the time Vincent arrived at 6. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting warm light across the polished marble floors. Round tables draped in white linens filled the space, each decorated with elaborate centerpieces. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, sat the Steinway Concert Grand, its black surface gleaming like a mirror. 350 of Manhattan's wealthiest people would be filling this room in an hour. CEOs, investors, celebrities, politicians, all of them here for Vincent's annual charity gala. All of them expecting an evening of fine dining, networking, and entertainment. None of them knowing they were about to witness something that Vincent himself couldn't predict. David appeared at his elbow, looking stressed but organized. Everything's ready. The orchestra recording is queued up. Sound system is perfect. Caterers are on schedule. He paused. Has she arrived yet? Vincent checked his watch. 6:30. Not yet. And if she doesn't show, she'll show, Vincent said with more confidence than he felt. But as the minutes ticked by and guests began arriving, Vincent felt doubt creeping in. What if Lily had changed her mind? What if the whole week of practice had made her realize she wasn't ready? What if she'd simply decided that the risk wasn't worth it? By 7:15, the ballroom was nearly full. Guests were seated, waiters were serving the first course, and there was still no sign of Lily. Vincent stood near the entrance, trying to look calm while his heart pounded in his chest. David kept glancing at him nervously. We should have a backup plan, David whispered. Maybe we could get the hotel pianist to— Wait, Vincent interrupted. She appeared in the doorway like an apparition. Vincent almost didn't recognize her at first. Lily's dark hair was pulled back in an elegant style, her makeup subtle but transforming. But it was the dress that took his breath away. A simple black gown that somehow managed to be both modest and stunning. She looked like she belonged here, among the diamonds and designer labels. She looked like the concert pianist she was always meant to be. Their eyes met across the crowded entrance. Lily gave him the smallest nod, and Vincent felt something loosen in his chest. She was here. She was ready. Where did she get that dress? David murmured beside him. I have no idea, Vincent admitted. He later learned that the staff at Harmony House had pooled their money to rent it for her. But in that moment, all he could think was that she looked perfect. Lily made her way through the ballroom, drawing curious glances from guests who didn't know her. Vincent watched as she approached the platform, watched as she stood before the magnificent piano, her hand reaching out to touch the keys gently, almost reverently. Vincent made his way to the microphone at the front of the room. The conversations gradually died down as people realized he was about to speak. Good evening, everyone, Vincent began, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. Thank you all for being here tonight. As you know, we gather each year to support the Children's Hospital, and this year I'm pleased to announce we've already exceeded our goal of $2 million. Applause rippled through the room. Vincent waited for it to die down, tonight we have something special for you. A performance by a remarkable pianist who will be playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. Please welcome Lily Chen. The applause was polite but uncertain. Nobody here knew who Lily was. To them, she was just another performer, hired entertainment for the evening. Vincent returned to his seat at the front table, his hands gripping the armrest so tightly his knuckles turned white. Lily sat down at the piano bench. She adjusted it slightly, settled her hands in her lap, and closed her eyes. The room fell completely silent. Even the waiters stopped moving. For 10 seconds, Lily didn't move. Vincent could see her breathing deeply, centering herself. And then her eyes opened, her hands rose to the keys, and the music began. The orchestral introduction came through the speakers, rich and powerful, and then Lily's hands came down on the keys and the piano sang. Vincent had heard this piece dozens of times over the years. It was famous, one of the most beloved piano concertos ever written, but he had never heard it like this. Lily didn't just play the notes. She lived inside them. Every phrase was a conversation. Every crescendo was a wave of emotion that washed over the room. He watched her face as she played, watched how she leaned into the dramatic moments, how she pulled back for the tender passages. Her whole body moved with the music, swaying, bending, her fingers dancing across the keys with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. Around him, Vincent could see the audience changing. The polite attention had transformed into genuine captivation. Forks were lowered. Conversation stopped completely. Every eye in the room was fixed on the young woman at the piano and the magic she was creating. The first movement of Rachmaninoff's second concerto tells a story. It starts with those famous opening chords, heavy and brooding like someone struggling to find their way out of darkness, and then slowly the melody emerges, hope breaking through, light finding its way in. As Lily played, Vincent found himself back in that tiny apartment in Queens. He was 12 years old again, sitting next to his mother at their cheap keyboard, learning these same kinds of pieces, feeling the same kind of magic that Lily was channeling now. He remembered his mother's words. "The piano doesn't make music. You do." Lily was making music. Real, honest, heartbreaking music, and everyone in the room could feel it. The technical passages came, those impossibly fast runs that had broken countless pianists. Lily sailed through them effortlessly, her fingers a blur. But she never lost the emotion, never let the virtuosity overshadow the feeling. This wasn't showing off. This was storytelling. Vincent glanced around the room. A woman at the next table had tears streaming down her face. A businessman who'd been checking his phone earlier was now completely still, transfixed. Even the waiters had stopped pretending to work and were simply watching. The music built and built, climbing toward the movement's emotional peak. Lily leaned into the piano, her whole being focused on the sound she was creating. The orchestra swelled through the speakers, and Lily's piano answered, note for note, phrase for phrase, building to a moment that felt like the whole world was holding its breath. And then, just when it seemed like the music couldn't get any more intense, Lily pulled back. The melody softened, became tender and introspective. This was the heart of the piece. The moment where all the struggle and passion resolved into something quieter but no less powerful. Acceptance, understanding, peace. Vincent felt something wet on his face and realized he was crying. He couldn't remember the last time he'd cried. Maybe at his mother's funeral 10 years ago, maybe not even then. But now, listening to Lily play, he couldn't stop the tears. She wasn't just playing Rachmaninoff. She was playing her own story, the loss of her parents, the fall from grace, the nights on the street, the refusal to give up the one thing that defined her. All of it was there in the music, laid bare for everyone to hear. The final phrases came gentle and resolved. The orchestra recording faded, leaving just Lily and the piano. Her hands moved delicately over the keys, each note clear and perfect. And then with one final chord that hung in the air like a question answered, she stopped. For 3 full seconds, there was absolute silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And then the ballroom erupted. The applause was thunderous, overwhelming. People leaped to their feet. The standing ovation spontaneous and genuine. Glasses clinked, voices shouted bravos. And through it all, Lily sat at the piano, her hands still resting on the keys, her eyes closed, tears running down her face. Vincent stood with everyone else clapping until his hands hurt. But he wasn't looking at Lily anymore. He was looking inward, at all the choices he'd made, all the years he'd spent running from the boy who loved music, all the time he'd wasted convincing himself that art was a luxury and only practical things mattered. Lily had just proven him wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. When she finally stood and bowed, the applause somehow grew even louder. And when her eyes found Vincent's across the crowded room, he saw something in them that took his breath away. Not triumph, not vindication. Just a quiet question. "Do you understand now?" Vincent nodded, not caring who saw. Yes, he understood. Finally, he understood everything. The applause continued for what felt like forever. Lily bowed 3 more times before finally stepping down from the platform, her legs shaking slightly. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. But as the adrenaline began to fade, reality crept back in. Now came the hard part. Facing Vincent. She found him waiting near the side exit, away from the crowds of people who were already approaching her with compliments and business cards. His eyes were red, and Lily realized with surprise that he'd been crying. Vincent Chen, the billionaire who supposedly never showed emotion, had cried watching her play. That was... Vincent started, then stopped. He seemed to be struggling to find words. "I don't have the right words for what that was." "Thank you," Lily said quietly. Her heart was still racing, her hands still trembling from the performance. Vincent pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. The $10,000. As promised. He held it out to her. Lily stared at the envelope but didn't take it immediately. "Before I accept this, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why did you really do this? The challenge, the bet, all of it. Was it just to prove you were right about me? To make yourself feel superior?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the gala continued. Waiters served dessert. Guests networked and laughed. But in their small corner, everything felt still and honest. "At first, maybe," Vincent admitted. "I saw you on that street corner, and you reminded me of something I'd spent 30 years trying to forget. I think I wanted to prove that people like us, people who chase impractical dreams, we don't make it. We fail. Because if you failed, then I could tell myself I'd made the right choice all those years ago when I gave up music. And now?" Lily asked. "Now I realize I was the one who failed, not you." Vincent looked down at his hands. "You lost everything and you kept playing. I had everything and I still stopped. You're braver than I ever was." Lily finally took the envelope, but instead of opening it, she held it thoughtfully. "Can I ask you something else? Something personal?" Vincent nodded. "If you could go back, would you make a different choice? Would you keep playing piano instead of building your company?" "I don't know," Vincent said honestly. "Maybe I needed to build all of this first before I could understand what I was missing. Maybe some lessons you can only learn the hard way." He paused. "What are you going to do now?" "With the money?" Lily opened the envelope and looked at the stack of bills inside. $10,000. It was more money than she'd seen in 2 years. She could get an apartment, buy new clothes, eat real meals, start rebuilding her life. "Half of it goes to Harmony House," she said suddenly. "They gave me a place to practice. They didn't ask questions. They just helped. They deserve it more than I do." "That's $5,000, Vincent said. "You're giving away $5,000 when you're living on the street?" "Because I know what it's like to have nothing," Lily replied. "And I know how much it means when someone helps you. If I don't pay that forward, then what's the point of any of this?" Vincent stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, but it wasn't mocking. It was genuine, almost surprised. "You're either the wisest person I've ever met or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Lily said with a small smile. "I want to hire you," Vincent said abruptly. Lily blinked. "What? Not as a performer?" "Well, not just as a performer." Vincent's words came faster now, like he was figuring it out as he spoke. "I want to start a foundation. Music education for underprivileged kids. Real programs, real funding, real opportunities. Kids who have talent but no money, kids like you and me. And I want you to run it." "You're not serious." "I'm completely serious." Vincent pulled out his phone. "Look, I've already been thinking about this all week. I have the resources. I have the connections. What I don't have is the understanding. The real knowledge of what it means to fight for your art when the world is telling you to be practical. But you have that. You've lived it." Lily felt dizzy. This was too much, too fast. I'm not qualified to run a foundation. I don't know anything about business or nonprofit management or... You'll learn. I'll teach you. We'll hire people who know those things." Vincent looked at her intently. But the vision, the heart of it, that has to come from someone who understands what music can mean to someone who has nothing else. "That's you. Why are you doing this?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because you reminded me of who I used to be, and maybe, if I help create opportunities for other people like us, I can make peace with the choice I made." Vincent's voice was raw with emotion, and because nobody should have to choose between eating and pursuing what they love. Nobody should have to give up their dreams just to survive. Lily felt tears starting again. She'd cried during the performance, releasing years of pain and loss through the music. Now she was crying for a different reason. Hope. Actual, real hope for the first time in 2 years. "I don't know what to say," she managed. "Say yes," Vincent replied. "Say you'll think about it at least." Before Lily could answer, David appeared, looking flustered. "Vincent, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are about 20 people asking to speak with you and another 30 asking about Lily. News about her performance is already spreading on social media. Someone filmed part of it." Vincent and Lily exchanged glances. "Tell them to give us 5 more minutes," Vincent said. After David left, Vincent turned back to Lily. "You don't have to decide now, but think about it. In the meantime, that 5,000 you're keeping, use it to get yourself an apartment. Get yourself stable, and then whenever you're ready, call me. My card is in the envelope with the money. What if I'm not ready for months? What if I need time to figure out who I am now after everything? Then take months. Take a year if you need to." Vincent smiled, and it transformed his whole face. He looked younger, less hardened. "I've waited 30 years to figure out who I should have been. I can wait a little longer." 3 months later, on a cold January morning, Lily walked into the newly renovated building on the Lower East Side. The sign outside read, "Harmony Foundation, a place for young musicians." Inside, the space was warm and bright, filled with practice rooms, each with its own piano. There was a small concert hall, a recording studio, and offices upstairs. Vincent was already there, standing in the main room, looking nervous. Next to him was a small upright piano. "I thought we should christen the place," he said. "Play something together." Lily raised an eyebrow. "You play?" "Used to. I'm trying to remember how." Vincent sat down at the piano bench and patted the space beside him. "I warn you, I'm terrible." Lily sat down next to him. "What should we play?" "Something simple. Something my mother used to play with me." Vincent placed his hands on the keys and after a moment began a simple melody. It was shaky and uncertain, but it was music. Lily joined in, adding harmony, filling in the gaps, making his simple melody sound fuller and richer. They played together, billionaire and former street musician, 2 people who'd taken very different paths but somehow ended up in the same place. When they finished, Vincent turned to her. "I've been thinking about what you asked me that night, if I would make a different choice if I could go back. And I wouldn't change anything. Because if I had, I never would have met you. I never would have been in the position to help create this." He gestured around the beautiful space. "Sometimes the long way around is the only way to get where you're supposed to be." Lily looked around the foundation, thinking about all the young musicians who would walk through these doors. Kids who loved music but had no money. Kids who needed someone to believe in them. Kids like she had been. "You know what's funny?" she said. "A year ago I was sitting on a sidewalk with a cardboard sign and you laughed at me. You told me if I couldn't play I wouldn't get food. And now look at us," Vincent smiled. "Now look at us indeed." The foundation opened its doors the following week. Within 6 months, they had 50 students. Within a year, they'd expanded to 3 locations. Lily proved to be a natural leader, understanding exactly what young musicians needed because she'd lived it herself. And Vincent, to everyone's surprise, including his own, started taking piano lessons again. He would never be as good as Lily. But that wasn't the point. The point was that he was playing again, reconnecting with the part of himself he'd buried for 30 years. And every time he sat down at the piano, he thought about that night outside the restaurant and the young woman with the cardboard sign who'd changed his entire life. Sometimes the people we judge the harshest are the ones who teach us the most important lessons. Sometimes the thing we run from is the thing we need most. And sometimes a simple challenge born from arrogance can transform into something beautiful, something that changes not just 2 lives, but hundreds. Music has that power. To heal, to connect, to transform. All you have to do is be brave enough to play.